So, what organizations do you work closely with here in Charlotte?
Most closely right now I'm working with Democracy North Carolina. We do nonpartisan voter protection. So essentially, we just ensure that marginalized communities have the same access to the polls as everyone else. I also work with QPOC Charlotte, which is queer trans folks of color, and we show up and show out at like Black Lives Matter events. You know, pretty much anything that affects the community, which would be like air and like energy costs, right? So I would say that's probably where I work most closely, and then possibly the Southeast Asian Coalition. I would include, we're doing a lot of work with a police brutality case in Greensboro right now. So that's the majority.
Okay. So what is your role in some of these organizations? Or like just pick the one that you're working closest with?
Yeah.
And just kind of give me a rundown.
I would say my role would be community organizer. So essentially, I sometimes help plan rallies or actions, sometimes speak at actions, sometimes, just kind of do some poster making, getting the word out. Most specifically with the Southeast Asian Coalition, typically I'll travel with their program and their youth. We'll go to Greensboro, wherever we need to be, teaching the kids about different forms of civic engagement, especially in terms of police brutality cases. So showing up at city council meetings, showing up to the jailhouse to, speak out against the officer, kind of just different ways to get involved. With regard to QPOC, which is, like once I said, once again, queer, trans, people of color, we typically do a lot of shouting, dancing, singing, a little more of the creative engagement, and trying to really get the arts involved as well. Democracy North Carolina, I'm recently employed as well. That was maybe in June 21st. So we do a lot of staff meetings, coalition meetings, coalition building, a lot of grassroots, like, let's get some elbow grease.
Yeah. So wow, sounds like everything from top to bottom. So
intersectional.
And is there some like a specific issue that you have found, is closest to your heart in any of these organizations?
I mean, I would say like Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter is all encompassing, because like when you're saying Black Lives Matter, you're saying like access to like renewable energy sources for like Black and marginalized communities is a thing, should be happening. Education, like decent education, well-paid teachers, that's all under the Black Lives Matter umbrella. Other than that, I would say even more specifically, trans rights is a really huge thing. I feel like however a community or society treats, the most different, the most diversified members of the community, it really speaks to like the nation as a whole, right? And so like what trans folks in America are going through right now, specifically Black trans women, right? Because we're getting back to intersectionality, it's kind of heinous, and it's crazy that it can happen when we have, as forward-thinking individuals, when we can create iPhone 6s, but we still can't treat humans the way they ought to be treated. So that would probably be where my heart is pulled to most. But in terms of efficiency, I'm very much aware that like all this work must be done together, collectively, collaboratively, right? To like raise the bottom at the same time for everyone. Because I understand that Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, definitely. But I definitely think that with the Black Lives Matter movement, that people only kind of focus on that one type of police brutality side. But, I went to one of the rallies recently, and it's kind of eye-opening that, it's not just about that. It's about everything. Like you said, education, just, the energy sources, work, it's everything all together.
Right, absolutely.
So, are you familiar with Citizens United that was passed in 2011?
Vaguely, if you want to give me just a quick.
So this
Reminder
was,
just a lot of
yeah, this was one of the legislation that was passed that kind of allowed corporations to start giving way more amounts of money than before, because it allowed them to give soft money, which is
like in terms of like PACs.
yeah. So if they didn't explicitly say, oh, vote for this person, and they didn't say that, they were allowed to start donating more money and suggest to vote for that person.
Yes.
So what do you think that, legislation like that and other ways that money has infiltrated into politics, what do you think like the effect has been on that?
I wouldn't say there is a positive or negative effect. I think the effect is exactly as it was planned to be. We live in a capitalist, patriarchal, democratic society, and with capitalism being inherently exploitative, I don't really see any result other than, people being without resources, people being taken advantage of, people using the system in less transparent ways, because that's just kind of the way it works, right? It's the more sinister ways to work through the channels that are supposed to block that kind of stuff. Like you said, soft donation, soft money. That's kind of my best answer, just because our economic system is capitalism, so we can't. There's no way to engage in it, at least under the way America has it right now. There's no way to engage in capitalism and not exploit someone or something, just because it's built off like competition, and competition always has to have a loser, at least a few of them, right? So, I don't know. I think what it's evidence of is that corporations are gaining more weight in politics. They're gaining more power in politics. Whereas before, perhaps necessarily your senator wasn't also your businessman. Now those lines are much more blurred because of the way that our society has shifted. Like, okay, so who's got the money? That's how we get the election. Okay, money's in corporations because we have a society. So like, who's buying the elections? Like, everyone knows elections are bought. So not everyone. That's kind of bad to say, but I believe elections are bought, not bought.
So what do you think is kind of what some of the biggest problems that we are seeing in democracy? So that's kind of a big question, but do you think it's how people are going out to vote? Do you think it's the corporations? Do you think it's
we really can't place the responsibility of a failed governmental system on lack of voter turnout, when typically the populations that aren't voting are typically your most marginalized or least listened to population. So when we're talking about our millennial population, when we're talking about like rural folks, poor black folks, whatever, you're talking about people with the least amount of access to these spaces. Like North Carolina alone has a voter ID law, right? That's insane. You're pretty much requiring people to pay to vote, right? Because if you don't have an ID, you need to go to the DMV and pay to get one, right? So it's forcing you to engage in like economy, to engage in democracy, which is why I said that economic democratic structure of capitalism doesn't work. Also, what was I going with that? What was your?
So biggest threats to democracy.
Biggest threat. So it would be like the fact that, like access to the polls. I can't put that responsibility on people not turning out. That's the responsibility on that is on our senators who are doing redistricting, right? And Congress folks who are allowing these things to happen when they've been paid to sit in a seat and now have to follow up with those dollars, like what those dollars brought them. So maybe another threat to democracy would be we have a lack of self-efficacy as a nation right now, because we have a lot of folks who are pretty much like, it kind of says the way it is, that's the status quo. mainly because like corporations have been running things. So like it's like, yeah, we've gone out and voted, we've got our Congress folks saying they're gonna do this, this, and this, but then it can't happen that way because at the end of the day, it's a dollar amount that's being chased, not like your population's needs.
Yeah.
I would probably also say like we're experiencing a decrease in nationalism, right? So one of the main things that perpetuated nationalism in the past was democracy, like this whole freedom thing, but the facade of freedom has kind of been taken down with police brutality, with, you know, WIC being cut, with Medicaid, Medicare, you know, being inaccessible. People are realizing that their needs aren't prioritized by the government. So I would probably say lack of transparency on the governmental level, especially legislative level, is our biggest threat right now, because if you don't have the people who believes in, you know, these figureheads, then what are they going to do? They're not going to show up and take time out of their day to go wait in a hotline for someone to be rude to them. You know, it's like
yeah,
the aesthetics are lost.
all these things are connected.
Absolutely. Long answer.
No, great. So Duke Energy has spent millions of dollars contributing to candidates and to lobbying, and do you think this has any effect on North Carolina policies and laws?
Yeah, it's like Corey, I'm sure is getting like paid somewhere. When we talk about Duke Energy in North Carolina, we're talking about water, we're talking about coal ash, we're talking about like destroying the environment, right? So I would think it definitely has like had a major effect. We're talking about people pretty much being paid to destroy natural resources. You know, the fact that none of the natural water sources in North Carolina are technically like, most of them are contaminated, right? So it's like, what Duke's been able to pay for in terms of like, hey y'all, we're gonna need you to like, what was it when she got, I think it was the president of Duke Energy, like in the last year, what was that rally we went to? Essentially, there was like the fact that they get like 100% reimbursement, I believe, tax reimbursement or something like that on their energy costs, and we still pay it. Like, I don't really know how to explain
It's something that where it suits them to keep building because they get more money out of it.
So
they spend more and they gain more from it, right?
Exactly. So they continue to create this harmful system and then get rewarded by the state, right? And so I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, but yeah, again, the same thing where they're putting out more, and you know it's harmful, but they're in the end they're getting profit.
It's incentives.
Yeah, exactly. So why they're thinking, why should we stop?
Exactly. No.
So like, there's no point for us. So, what do you think can be done to get this money out of the politics? Do you think it has to do with people rallying, or do you think it has to go higher up?
And there's going to need to be a restructuring of the entire system. Sometimes I grapple with like how far to go with what they say, but in terms of money and politics, we are a nation whose safety, whose wealth, whose food sources, technology sources are all dependent on capital, and our politics are all dependent on capital as we stand as a nation right now. So unless we completely restructure our government to get away from that system, to get away from like, okay, in order to even run, you need to have this much money. In order to even like get not even your name on the ballot, to get a bill anywhere, you need to have this many people on your side. And what do you need to have that many people on your side? You need this much money. You know what I mean? So I think to restructure the entire U.S. system, honestly, I think for a lot of people, we forget that the United States as a nation is incredibly young. We're due for another American Revolution on our own soil where we recreate our structure to fit our status quo as it stands now, right? Because what we built originally, sure, it fit when black people were only, what, 1/3 of a person in the Constitution, right? It fit that time. But now people are literally like, we want real freedom, we want real equality, so we gotta redo it again. So what that revolution looks like, you know, it doesn't have to be war, it doesn't have to be any of those things, but there's gonna have to be a restructuring from top down, bottom up, you know, all the way down. Maybe just like tear down and just like start over and like see what works, because if we were able to imagine this life as it stands right now in America, you know, 400 years ago, we can reimagine something better than this, period, and create it. That's how it happens. You know, humans, that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Keep changing. So, what do you think of McCrory's time as governor?
McCrory's time as governor, I think sometimes that's a joke, but I think in his time in office, he's been able to disenfranchise a large number of the North Carolina population, from teachers to students to parents to especially single parents, you know what I mean, women, considering what 85% of women's health clinics that offered abortion were shut down, right? So McCrory's time in office has been a stark reflection of where we've come as a society and what our politics is, and what our politics looks like, and what checks and balances has become. They don't exist. You know, if we have an entire state run by a 4-year-old, essentially, you know, who can't look at a picture macro, you know, can't look at the fact that you stop paying teachers now, and we're 50th in the nation in teacher paying now, you're not going to be able to get teachers to come to your state 4 years from now, right? So what's going to happen to education in the macro term? You've got coal ash contaminating water sources now. What does that do for the living animals already in that water source who are going to breed and make new animals and babies? What are these contaminants really doing long term? So I think that McCrory's time in office is detrimental to us as a state, and maybe even further than that, because we can't just pretend that these issues into state lines, right? And an activist and organizer who's from Charlotte, North Carolina, a young trans black male who lost his life last year following the original non-discrimination ordinance. And it's violent. We have a lot of violent legislation entering the law books here, where your state sanctioning violence against huge numbers of people, you know, who just want to exercise their right to live, right? Besides HB2, you know, we've got immigration bills that are ripping children out of homes, you know, families apart. Like, we're living in a state where humanity almost doesn't exist from our government. So I would say, I mean, I don't know, all of it gets closed out, you know. So.
Yeah. Can you describe a time where you saw people power in action? I mean, since you work in these organizations, can you think of one specific moment where you're like, wow, these people are really working. They're really making a difference.
Yeah, okay. I believe that it was when Greenpeace had, it was like this, the Rolling Sun. You know what I mean? I think that's, and it went to different high schools, like all throughout Charlotte, and allowed like students to be, you know, pioneers of getting the information to other students, and like getting it to their teachers. They're, you know, really requiring engagement from youth. I thought that was really powerful, because like a lot of folks, we forget that, yeah, front lines is awesome, yeah, protesting and rallying is great, but sometimes like that long haul work of like showing up weekly with this huge van thing that came from here, that came from like somewhere up north, I believe, or was it Florida? Do you remember where the Rolling Stone came from?
Oh, I think the last time it was doing hurricane relief work in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's been in Mexico.
It's everywhere, and like just really giving hands-on learning about renewable resources. I think that's dope. I mean, and then of course all the protesting, rallying takes a lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of fearlessness.
Courage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And so, what kind of success stories have you had?
Could you elaborate? Like,
And and anything with what you've been working with. You said Democracy in North Carolina, or with the trans queer movements. Has there been a moment where you're like, we worked so hard for this, we rallied, we went out, and then finally
that's a
there
tough
was an
one to
accomplishment?
answer because it's hard for me to measure things that way because like I'm very macro oriented. Perhaps body cameras in Mecklenburg was kind of a win, but like I don't know, unarmed people of color still getting killed by the police. So it's like I love it.
And and McCrory has something to do with that too,
Exactly.
with the videos not being able to be shown publicly. So
Yeah, oh, well, I guess a win would be with the Southeast Asian Coalition, we were able finally to get Reedsboro City Council to allow us to view the footage of the case in Reedsboro. That was like 3 months ago. We finally got access to it from Reedsboro PD. So I guess it was kind of a win, but still, a person lost their life.
yeah.
So it's kind of it's just really hard because people are still like dying and like drinking bad water and going to schools where the teachers really don't care about them. So I guess until that moment comes, I don't know.
I know it's hard, especially when you're always when you have to picture the big picture, because sometimes the small accomplishments don't feel like a lot. But hey, that's on the right path.
Absolutely.
Without those small victories, we wouldn't be getting anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right. So what is your vision for the future? What would you like to see happen in North Carolina?
Every single's stomach, like fed, sheltered, clean waters, GMO-free, like food. Schools that focus on like individualized education plans. I want to see like, I don't even know if I want to see police, but if we must have police who are engaged in their communities, not engaged in only policing their communities. I would like to see trans and queer folk be able to really like blossom and like live their lives without fear in North Carolina, especially like trans women of color who are being murdered at like alarming rates. I would like to see, just I don't know. I just want to see people able to live their lives where they can create the most that they can create and give back the most. And typically, when you can give back the most when you're fed, when you're not worrying about shelter, when you're not worrying about like, oh my goodness, I'm being pulled over right now. If I reach for my wallet, what's gonna happen? Like, that's kind of what I want to see.
So I had one last question for you.
Yeah.
Since you're in your 20s.
24.
24. So would you say it's hard to get other people your age to follow these movements and get involved and pay attention to what's going on in politics, or do you feel like people are paying attention?
I would not say it's hard necessarily. I think what's happening is a lot of us are jaded. A lot of us are, there's a level of cynicism in terms of like civic engagement that I find that isn't our fault. We grew up when, during our elementary school time, 9/11 happened, and like the facade of safety, the facade of wealth, it all kind of crashed down like really blatantly for us. So I think what's harder is giving people a real tangible right now reason to care now. Because a lot of the now work is for tomorrow. It's like, okay, we got to do this work on coal ash because our water isn't going to be okay tomorrow. there's a lot of like results now kind of thing. Like even I go through that. So I mean, I think we're all very aware. I think the awareness is 100% there. It's the engagement front that we're lacking in, but I see it growing every day. I'm seeing more and more of my friends posting, questioning, opening up their minds a little more to like, okay, let me get out of this like strictly like college millennial, this is all I do, party, have fun. What can I do for like the world kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.